Jeff. We started the company in 2001, and so I've been there obviously ever since. And I just want to welcome you here to Deer Ridge. If you call my office line on Friday afternoons, you're probably going to voicemail, and I'm likely out here. It's a nice setting, but interestingly, it's a not-for-profit, and I'm a member, so this is literally the cheapest place I could have this. I think lunch will be good, but they don't have any agenda to make money on me, so it's a perfect spot. So I thought I'll just start with the agenda here. We'll start with a quick history, and I won't bore you too long there. We'll talk about ahead of the cloud. That's a term that I've coined, by the way, ahead of the cloud. It's very clever, right? So I've coined that. Thank you. We'll talk about what it means, staying ahead of the curve a little bit. There's some important stuff on Microsoft Office and information security. So staying ahead of the cloud sort of starts with, where we started with this whole, at the time, was called hosted networks. So in 2001, 2002, I spent a lot of time talking about hosted, and I thought I'd bring up a couple of slides for history's sake. If you remember back to 2002, that's when the Star Wars movies first rebooted. Remember that they ended in the 80s or whatever, and they sort of started over. And the first one was called Attack of the Clones. That was the very first reboot. And at that time, there was a new or newish computer vendor on the market called Dell. Dell had only been around a little while, and I was out sort of beating my fist on the table saying, you guys should think about being on a brand name. We fought this idea of homemade computers a great deal. So I bought the advertising at the cinema. When you went to the movieplex, and remember they would put commercials up? So locally, I bought, and these were the slides that we put up. Is your business being attacked by clones? And the one other networking company can defeat the clones. That was our first marketing slide of ever. And if you remember back in the day, RIM, at the time they were called RIM, bought all the theaters in town to send their staff during the day. And so we had a one slide for when the RIM employees were all seeing the movie for the first time. And that actually turned out to be the best marketing I ever did, because they all left RIM shortly thereafter and sort of remembered us, so that turned out pretty good. I was also introducing the concept back in the day of hosted, now called cloud. And I have the original slide from 2001 that I made for a Communitech talk. I think Tim Jackson was there. A few of you might have been there. That was the original slide I made back in 2001. And it just talked about the way we used to do business. And I did it. Hey, look, and in fact, we still do this. And there's some people in the crowd that we do it for. So we're not gonna talk negatively about it. But we would come out and see what you needed. We would prepare a quote, and you'd buy a bunch of gear, small offices, even $10,000, $25,000 in stuff. We'd come out and put it all together for you, invoice you for doing it. Then we'd come back once a week, roughly, and we'd bill you for that too. And if you needed any upgrades, we're happy to help you with those. And if there's ever any downtime, geez, we were sad to hear it. But we're on our way, and the meter's running. Right? So, and then at the end of that cycle, which is usually somewhere between 36 and 48 months, we threw all that stuff away and sold you a new set of gear. And that's the way it was for a long time. And so I started telling people, look, why do you want to own this stuff? Why don't you just come on the host one? Now, that's called cloud now, right? And so everybody in this room gets to congratulate themselves a little. This is my turn. You were ahead of the cloud. You've been doing this, some of you for 15 years or 12 years. I just a few to count. Some of you are new to it, but give yourself some credit. You made that buying decision long before it was cool to do that. The question becomes, how do we stay ahead? If we made a smart decision years ago and we're sort of been riding that, what's next? And by the way, if I just keep talking here, this is going to be over in 15 minutes, which I know will be fine.
We get to the free lunch.
Yeah. as we go, anytime you want to speak up or ask a question, this is an open forum. Don't be shy. So the question becomes, though, what's next? And the question I get most, why is it called cloud? I get this question all the time. Why? Why is it called cloud? And the answer is way more simple than you might think. Nerd guys like me, whenever they drew a diagram, this is what they used to look like. We drew this is your firewall router. There was always a cloud that represented the internet. That's it. That's the reason. That's why it's called cloud. Now, it implies a couple things. It implies, number one, that you use the internet as a medium to get there, right? That you're employing the internet to get to something that you use. And the other implication is that it's not your problem anymore. Someone else is managing it. Someone else's problem. And so that's true for our service, right? We're using the internet to get you back to the services that we provide, and it's kind of our problem. So there you go. What I thought we'd do is just go quickly through some of the stuff we've been doing for you over the past little while, and some of the challenges and the stuff we've done well, and the stuff maybe we haven't done. So the first one is backups. And holy smokes, have we come a long way in this one. So for people that were with us a long time, I know, Lori, you have been with us a long time, and we used to take and do what's called backhauling. So you had a server on your premises, and we had a connection back to our office, and we used to copy the data from your server back to our office, to an array of disks. And we used a program called Robocopy, and we used to, if something's changed, copy it, but keep a version of it in case they want the old version back, and it wasn't a great system. And when it got to our office, we put it on magnetic media, like tape, to keep it for a longer term. We put it on, this is my favorite, we put it on the equivalent of an 8-track tape. That's an Elvis 8-track tape. I keep that one in the office. If you know anybody, if anybody's still doing backups with backup tapes, they shouldn't be. Like, it just doesn't work. So, over the years, we've spent a ton of time perfecting or changing the way you do backups, and nowadays, we don't backhaul anymore. The on-premises servers that you have, much of your data is at our office, but the stuff that isn't goes directly through the cloud, out and is backed up. As a point of interest, and you should all be questioning me now, geez, it's going through the internet. Is it encrypted? Great question, Lori. Yes, it is encrypted. It's encrypted both in transit and at rest. So on the way through the cloud, it's encrypted, and where it sits, whether that's in Azure, Microsoft Azure's fabric, or in, what's the other one we use, Scott? The Amazon, their encryption is slightly better, actually. It sits there in at rest, encrypted as well. So no one from Microsoft or no one from Amazon could look at your data.
So is it held in Canada or in the US?
Good question. If you don't care, if your business regulations don't care, it can be either. It's slightly more expensive to say it never leaves Canada. So and in your case, I think, does it have to stay? I don't remember.
We need to talk about that now.
Okay, so that's a good question. So if your business, if you think you might have regulations where your data shouldn't leave, certainly if you're in healthcare, there are a number of our clients who we make certain it doesn't leave. So in that case, we have to put restrictions on where it's at rest. So Microsoft, as an example, in their Azure storage, you can go to the back end and configure geo-replication limits, meaning it can't go to New Jersey, or it can only go from Toronto to Montreal, as an example, which is in fact what we do for a number of people. With a little bit of pat on the back, maybe, I think we're doing a much better job with backup than we ever have in the past. There is no other technology I'm aware of that's better. If there was, we'd switch. And a number of years ago, I think 4 years ago now, we did switch. And if any of you guys remember, that was a lot of heavy lifting. And I'll show you where we're at. This is kind of an interesting slide. This is just last month, the month of January. So I took this picture the other day. We are protecting 160,000 gig of your data. 160 terabytes of data. It's a lot. And so what you've never heard from us is, oh, you guys have too much data. It's probably true. There isn't much data hygiene, right? I don't hear a lot of guys call and say, geez, I really got to go through this to remove stuff. So we don't care. Drive space is relatively inexpensive, and however much you got, we're just going to back it up for you. Now, there's one exception in the room. Where's Adam? I didn't see. Adam's here. Adam's from the Kitchener Rangers. They're a great client. They have the new $1 million scoreboard at Center Ice. You've probably seen some of their artwork that they put up. So imagine the resolution of that picture that I had to put up here for it to not look granulated. Well, imagine the resolution of the picture you need to put up on the big scoreboard at the auditorium. Some of their artwork isn't going across the wire every day. It's just not, we couldn't fit it if we tried. It's just not, so we have another strategy there, so there's one exception, but for the most part, we're doing backups every single day. And it's important to know that we'd like to do them more often, but we can't. It's a balance between performance and frequency of backup. So if we run it at 10 a.m. and 2 p.m., which we'd like to, users phone us and say, man, the internet's slow right now. The internet's killed because the backup's chewing up it's blowing out as much as it can, as fast as it can, and it's ruining your experience. So anytime that you can upgrade your internet package to a faster speed for the same dough, even though you probably don't really care, we want you to do that. And it's funny, we're going to talk about more of that later, but Julian is here at the back of the room in the white golf. He's from Rogers, and anybody who's on a bit of a dated internet package, if you haven't done your contract in a while, it's worth looking at. And if you've waited a year or two, you can generally go faster. That's just the way it is.
Provided you're in a location that will do that.
Very good. Yes. And hey, look, there's some people like Chris, the team building supply here, who has fiber to most of their locations. If you're on fiber, we're thrilled. But the Rogers cable service is quite good. We quite like it. There are challenges. We've had a few recently, but more often than not, it's been pretty good for us. Any questions on backup? Anybody have any questions on that?
I will later.
Okay. So the other thing we spend a great deal of time on is mail service, Microsoft Exchange, especially recently. So your mailboxes connect back to servers at our office and in the cloud. Just to give you and I'm not going to bore you, I promise no tech jargon, at least without explaining it. So this is a slide you do not need to understand, and we won't spend too much time on. The only thing you need to worry about is this little portion down here. That's you. That's your Outlook client. This is our data center here, and then there's also the cloud and Microsoft's connection. So the way it works now is we're obligated through Microsoft's products to be married to the cloud. Your version of Outlook needs to be relatively new to enjoy all the features that we can now provide. That said, not everybody has a new version of Outlook, so we spend a great deal of time being backward compatible. Backward compatibility is the enemy of security. Old Outlook clients aren't nearly as good as new. We'll talk more about that later. But we spend a ton of time in our side connecting to Microsoft's cloud and making sure that your Outlook can connect through us to them. And we'll just sort of leave it at that. I know you guys don't want to.
I have a question.
Okay.
What's the current version of Outlook?
2016. Great question. And we're going to answer, I've got a solution. Funny enough, there's a solution coming, so stay tuned. The other thing that you guys haven't had to live through, if I'd have sold you a bunch of gear years ago, you'd have lived through the virtualization craze. Virtualization is a great thing that none of you care about. So what it means is you have a physical server, probably a big one, that houses many virtual servers. So we're actually reducing the number of physical servers, metal boxes that are in the racks in our data center, but we're increasing the number of servers we have. And I've got a slide here from my Boxing Day. this year. We can never turn stuff off, so there are very few times of the year when I can make the type of change I need to. This is what I did on Boxing Day. These were all servers that you've probably connected to unknowingly at one time or the other, but they're not physical anymore. They don't exist where you can touch them. They're inside another group of servers. And there's a guy in the room who's particularly excited about this. And someone I wanted to introduce, actually. Rob, do you want to put your hand up there? That's Rob from REM Web Solutions. There's probably 6 or 8 of you in the room who have your website designed or hosted by Rob. His company was started at the same time as mine. We always send people to Rob when they need a new website. And he just did a big virtualization project with us. So he's got 2 physical servers, actual ones that exist in the real world, that house a number of virtual. And the cool part is, it doesn't matter which one they live on. So if the first physical server gets ill, or we need to reboot it, something simple as that, we just move all the virtual ones over to the other one. Reboot it, turn it back on, move them back, maybe move them all back and reboot the other one. It's a neat thing. I think, Rob, you're happy with it, I think.
Very happy, and we've got things synchronizing every 30 seconds, so, I mean, that's the worst case scenario of potential data loss for somebody, is 30 seconds worth, maximum 30 seconds worth, that we could have had a problem. And so that's a pretty impressive number to be able to advertise to our customers.
Yeah, that's great. And what's interesting is, if Waterloo networking was wiped off the map, if our location blew up or fire or something, because they're virtualized, these servers, they're like files, right? You can't put them on a USB stick because they're quite big, but we copy them up to the cloud. And in the cloud, if our data center breaks, we can take that copy of the server that's in the cloud and turn it on in the cloud. So disaster recovery wise, whatever everything gets wiped out, we can turn our servers back on in Minnesota or wherever or in Canada if it needs to be. And I know you guys don't really care about this stuff, but this is the stuff you have the luxury of not caring about because you don't own any of this gear. So that's sort of where we're going.
So why wouldn't you just leave it all up in the cloud?
That's a great question, and the answer is early adopters always pay more. I cannot wait for the day that we can do that.
Okay.
If I started Waterloo Networking today, we wouldn't have a data center. But I took a server, and it's funny, I took a test server just this month in January and put it up in Azure's Fabric because I needed to test something for a firewall test. It was idling, doing next to nothing because I wasn't even touching it. 3 days went by and I owed $150. It's expensive to be in the pure Azure Fabric. Now, it's worth it for many customers because it's geo-redundant. And it also has a thing called elasticity, where you put a server in the cloud and it can do 10,000 calculations, whatever. I'm trying to use a non-technical term, right? It does this much. Well, Microsoft doesn't put limits on it. It's not like a physical server. It says, hey, if you need to go 100,000, it'll just expand automatically, and the bill's in the mail. But there are many clients who need that. And hey, look, that day's coming. In fact, one of the things I really got wrong about the hosted model was when we started in 2001, I didn't think by 2010 that we would have servers on premises. Snap servers, the ones in the hall. I thought they'd be gone. I thought they'd be gone for sure. I was wrong. I can't wait for that day. It's coming, but it isn't now. There's always something. The one, there's 15 examples. I'll give you one quick one because we have to use it in-house, and then you do QuickBooks. QuickBooks does not lend itself well to being up in the cloud. We need to have a server on-prem to put the data and back it up properly. And you can do QuickBooks pure in the cloud, and you can buy it from QuickBooks, except they don't update Canadian payroll, and it doesn't really work, so you can't do that. So there's always something compelling us to keep it local. Wish it wasn't, but there is. But good question, very good question. The last thing that we've been working on a great deal in the last 2 or 3 years is what's called authentication with the cloud, or coexisting in the cloud. And so here's another slide I don't want you to care about or even have to worry about. We spend a ton of hours managing and installing this sort of thing. So, unbeknownst to you, your username and password is good for the resources on your computer, on your on-premises server, to the servers in our data center, and in the cloud. Single sign-on. You have to go through a lot of hoops for Microsoft to be okay with you doing identity synchronization. As you might imagine, Microsoft has some pretty steep paths to get through to be certified, and if you're going to synchronize stuff, you've got to do it right. So we've got this in our data center, and this is going to become relevant again, future slides. This is stuff we spend a ton of time. So, what's all the stuff I'm alluding to? What's coming in the future? So, you can only imagine that more change is coming. We've lived through a lot. The big one for right away is Microsoft Office. Is everybody in the room a Microsoft Office user? I would think we all are. So, when I first started in my business, and Chris, I think you can attest to this, everywhere I went, had a shelf like this. And everybody sort of bought their Microsoft Office or whatever, their operating systems in a box. And here's one, here's Office Professional 2007. And here's what everybody did. They bought it at work, they took out the CD, remember the CD? And they put it in their thing. What's the install? Oh, here's the install code, and they typed it in, and now they're running, and you know what they did? I'm gonna type this code. And I'm going to type this code in my own computer and nobody's going to know. And it actually worked because they didn't, Microsoft never had any auditing around, there was no online activation. You typed the code in, it worked again. You weren't allowed to do that, but that's what everybody did. So, this is the way people used to consume virtually all software, but especially Microsoft Office. In fact, you can still buy it that way. This is 2016. Just a box, doesn't come with anything, there's no CD, all it comes with is a license key. You should never buy this. I'll explain why in a sec. But it says, and I have a slide, I have a future slide here, I'll show you why you should never buy this. But what does it cost? What does it cost to buy it that way? The answer is it's 300 bucks, Canadian. Took this off, you can Google it, I took this off the slide. The most important aspect on this slide is right here. Install on one PC or Mac. You get one install. So, you can't do that anymore. You can't take this home. There's no CD. Once you've activated it, that's it. You get one copy. So, let's talk for a sec, and you gotta follow me on this one. What does it really cost to own Microsoft Office? Does anybody know how they buy it right now? Does anybody buy retail stuff? I hope not. I don't think they do. Whether you know it or not, we're selling it to you. Karen's in the back of the room there. I don't know if everybody met Karen. There's Karen. When you say, hey, it's time for a new computer, Karen happily adds Office to your Dell computer. And it's 300 bucks. And however long you keep your computer is how much you paid per month for Office. So if you only kept your computer 24 months, it would have been $12.50 a month that you spent on Office. If you kept your computer for 4 years, it would be $6.25 a month. I'm here to tell you, Microsoft does not want you to keep Office for 4 years anymore. Some people even longer, right? Microsoft hates the idea of people keeping products forever like that. And so how are they going to drag you into the future? Remember how the Outlook client, you need a new Outlook client to connect to the new version of the Exchange service that we talked about in the data center? They're going to force you to upgrade sooner than you were ever comfortable with before. I'm here to tell you, 36 months, you'll be lucky. You're gonna need a new version of Office every 3 years minimum. Microsoft has announced a strategy called N-1. They will support the current version of their server products and Office, -1. So if you're on 2013 right now, 2016's out, you're good. The next time one comes out, which is probably gonna be in 2018, you're out of luck. And that's, Microsoft's no dummies. That's good for business for Microsoft. So, can we move to the next slide agreeing we're probably spending $8 a month on Office. Okay, good.
Is that a per PC price or per user?
Phenomenal question. That was a per installed price. You got one install this way, right? If we sold it to you, it came on your computer, you can't take it home, you can't install it anywhere else. It was $8 a month for one install. I want you to consider buying Office this way. Office 365. It's $10 a month, $10.50. You get all the same things, you get a full version. It's like you had the CD installed, they're all the products, the suite is installed in your computer. However, here's the most important one, 5 installs. You get 5 installs. So, if you're buying your Office for $10 a month instead of $8, this way, through a subscription that we're happy to sell you, don't worry, right? You install it on the PC that came with it, and new Dell PCs come preloaded with 365 now, so you just have to activate it, or we'll activate it for you. Then, you can go home with your user credentials, your username and password from work, and install it on your home computer. You can install it on your tablet, your iPad or iPhone, your phone. Maybe you've got a laptop and a home computer. You can install it 5 times. Every person, if you have 10 people at the company, that's 50 installs. Now, you're probably thinking, oh my God, I don't want to go out and spend $10 a month on everybody that works there. Yeah, I know. I'm not suggesting we run out and do this all for everybody right now. Hey, look, if you want to, send me an email. We'll sign you up. What I'm suggesting we do, that when we sell you a new computer, instead of charging you $300 buried in the line items of all the stuff, we take that part out, we sell you the computer, and we sell you a subscription to Office. This is a perpetually new version. Whenever the new version of Office comes out, bing, download on your computer, done. Always will be the most current you can be.
Okay, but what about Lori and I? We're on thin clients. How does it work there?
Yes,
Yeah.
you guys are in a bit of, you were in a jam. We can't sell you that for terminal servers, so that's a great question. It's coming, but it has to be a PC right now. They don't do Office 365 subscriptions for terminal servers yet. I hope they will someday, but you can't do it yet.
So you have to buy multiple licenses?
So you need one per person.
Right. Like I connect through a thin client and also on a LAN.
You get, well, you use a laptop, I think,
Yeah.
but connecting to a remote place.
And to our remote server, plus we also have a LAN snap server in the office.
Yeah, and you'll be okay with your 5 installs.
Okay.
So Jeff, do we not have business class email at this point?
Where does it? So that is not included in this price. What's going to happen in the background that we're not telling you about is we're going to pay more per month than you are. We add extra cost to subscription because there's stuff that we want to subscribe to from Microsoft that we have to pay extra for on the server side. You don't have to pay for that because we're obligated to provide the server stuff for you. All you have to do is buy, so yeah, it's not included because this is their way of buying Office only. So 365 comes in a whole variety of different stuff. You can buy the enterprise, you can buy the small business, you can buy all kinds of versions. Don't worry about all the servers and all the other, this is just a way to consume Microsoft Office. Does that make sense? Okay.
When I connect to other clients, I use my own login that actually is they've set it up so it's got my own Brian and Steve group. Will it automatically give me that license on their remote locations?
No, it won't. And I can show you how it works. So once you have a subscription like this, you might ask, well, geez, how do I download? How do I get the new version all the time? There's a URL we'll put as a shortcut for you, portal.office.com. You go there, you sign in, and remember, we're doing single sign-on for you. It's the same username and password you use on your you sign in, and you can just say, install software, and bang, it installs it on the computer you're sitting on. But it won't install just automatically, right? You have to click something.
Are there any issues with the Word and Excel versions changing so that you then can't transfer files to other people who
Yeah.
can't open them?
That's a great question. So remember back in the day when someone in the office upgraded to the new version of Excel and they saved it and sent it to you and you couldn't open it because you didn't have the new version? Well, if we go this route, if everybody starts getting on the subscription, that's a problem that gets solved. Because now everybody will be on the perpetually new version. The way it works right now, if we sold you a computer 4 years ago versus one today, this version is different than this version, and you might get audited by Microsoft. Where's my license? I don't know. It came with the computer, and I got this little piece of paper that I haven't seen in 4 years. This takes care of all your licensing concerns.
Assuming you move everyone over at the same time.
And I'm not suggesting that. Like, I think we're going to get there. This is like a longer term journey. I don't. You can do that, right? We can just wipe it out if you haven't. If everybody's is really old and you want to move. But I just think we start picking it off, and you won't even feel the pain. So if it's $10 a month, we're paying $2 more than we did in this model. But it's going to take us 3 years before we really have paid any extra, right? If we because you don't. It's only 36 months that it's $8 a month. If we go to 224, it'd be 12.
So as a nonprofit, we've been buying our office software through TechSoup. Because I get, instead of paying $300, I pay like $50. So do you know if TechSoup includes this kind of stuff?
Yes, we do. And I think it's $2.
Awesome.
I think the subscription is $2 for not-for-profits. But there's some stuff there's some hoops we have to jump through to make sure that we're supplying to a not-for-profit.
I just wanted to add for anyone who is looking to talk about their existing Rogers account, or if anyone was considering switching, we recently do have an agreement with them. So some of our new internet plans, they could get you a business premium license to Microsoft Office 365, or if anyone uses the G Suite line of products. So that is included on the new 2-year with the internet. So another way to try it out if you want to talk with me about that after.
Okay, thank you.
We were talking a lot about the single sign-in, and I think we're 100% on the Office 365 ID already.
You're there already, that's right, yeah.
And frankly, it's great, for anybody who's wondering, it really is great. But the single sign-in ID, and if you want to talk about this offline, that's fine too, but I find that we're back and forth between using our Shop Gibson IDs that we log in with at the store and our Waterloo networking credentials. Is there something that we're doing wrong as far as having to use 2 sets of credentials?
There may be, or it may be a third-party software that's not integrated. For example, QuickBooks is completely third-party software.
It's just using Office, like if I try and install the OWA app on the phone to get phone access to calendars and things, I have to actually use both
Okay.
sets of credentials.
Opportunity for improvement. We should be able to fix that. We should be able to fix that. So I'm leaving the Office topic on the next slide. Again, you don't have to do anything today, but when it's time to get a new computer, we're going to suggest this route to you. Fair enough?
A lot of the